Hello YouTube, this is Neon, and today my talk is going to be about GE and some layoffs that were taking place in Erie, Pennsylvania. So recently I had seen a documentary that was covering this topic. They kind of focused on one particular guy who was about to be laid off. It was a part of a series of layoffs going on by GE in the city of Erie, Pennsylvania, I believe. In following this guy, he did ultimately become one of those who was laid off. According to this documentary, GE was making a ton of money. They were paying their stockholders quite well. And GE is one of either the top 10 biggest companies in the world or one of the top 5 biggest companies in the world. Of course, the unions there were trying to fight and were fighting these layoffs. According to this documentary, there's a new trend in U.S. companies now to take work from states where there's lots of union laws and protections for employees, and the amount of money that they have to pay their employees is more, to states where there aren't those protections, to states where apparently there are no unions. So they're taking a lot of these companies now to states where they can basically pay half what they were paying in the previous state with the protections. And that's what GE was doing. They were taking these jobs from Erie, Pennsylvania to Texas, where apparently Texas doesn't really have any unions. And they were doing this slowly but surely. They were cutting off or laying off several hundred people at a time. Okay. When this documentary focused on this gentleman who was laid off, there were some curious things. One was that the same day that he was laid off, and I don't mean to laugh or snicker, that was unintentional, because I truly don't mean that. The same day that he was laid off, on the front cover of a newspaper in that area, they had reported on the front page these big earnings for GE. The same day that he was laid off. That probably it's just greed. It's just human greed. They don't need to lay off the people that they're laying off. They're making a lot of money, but GE wants more money, is what it would appear. Another thing was that he had stated, this man had stated, it's not so much that I'm getting laid off, it's that these big companies want to treat the U.S. worker the same way they treat workers in other countries when they take their companies to other countries. He said, like in China, where there's people who make 50 cents an hour. I found that to be very curious that he stated that, because we as consumers, we are co-conspirers with these big companies when they take their companies overseas, and at times, or they subcontract, as is the case with the apparel industry, with the clothing industry, they subcontract work to companies overseas, And a lot of the products that we consume here in the US that are cheap are produced by slave labor, sometimes literally by slave labor, or by workers that are paid 50 cents an hour or $80 a month or this kind of garbage. We are co-conspirers when we buy these products, particularly when we know about it. Now, I do blame the companies more than anything. I blame the companies more than anything. I remember one representative of a company doing his job, trying not to make his company look as bad as really they did look because of human greed. They looked pretty bad. But what he said was, well, you know, the US consumer, they want things cheaper and cheaper, so we have to give it to them as cheaply as we can give it to them. Human greed. It's not right. And our human greed in the US, allowing US companies to do that and go overseas and take jobs overseas and mistreat people overseas, treat them with a standard of living that would not be acceptable in the US. Us allowing them to do that over there, as this gentleman who was laid off talks about, means that they're trying to do it and bring it to the US. Many of these companies, they don't want to pay US workers. Obviously, that's why they went overseas. But many of these companies, in all likelihood, would probably pay us 50 cents an hour if they could get away with it. We need to be really cautious when we continue to buy products and we know that it's done by slave labor. Because we're encouraging these companies to continue to abuse people. And trust me, they want to abuse us just the same. Just like we want to abuse other people. This is not so much an indictment on the rich, regardless of race. This is an indictment on humanity. The statistics show that once a poor person gets rich, they behave just like the rich do. Unbridled greed, a false sense of superiority, mistreating others, getting as much as they possibly can for the products or services that they supply. This is whether you want to look at the liberal, the so-called progressives in the media who become super rich, or the traditional capitalists who start companies. They're all the same. We are a country that is a one-party nation, the party of money, because in this country we worship money. Some will say, I don't worship money, it's not my God, I don't bow down to it. I'm not talking in that nonsensical way. I'm talking in the sense that the rich, many people who have money or who could make a sacrifice to give money to help end homelessness will say, why should I have to pay for them to have a place to stay when they're just lazy? And this is effectively what people do. Let homeless people eat, sleep, and die, give birth on the street in the US. That is equivalent to worshiping money. When we're willing to let this happen to people, when there are people who, in the middle class, in the working class, well, no, poverty class, because I'm on SSI, we can all spare money. I pay my tithes. I sponsor children in third world countries. We can all make sacrifices. This is not just an indictment on the rich. It is more of an indictment on the rich in that they can pay more. They can give more as a percentage of their total income, and of course in just the dollar amount they can give more. But all of us can help fight this evil that's going on globally. I believe that we have a duty to do so. Like he said, they want to be able to treat us like they treat people in China. We're no better than people in China. The people of China are beautiful. The people of China are angels of God. The people of Cambodia, where people who work in the garment industry, apparel workers, I think is what it's called, may make $80 a month, live in a shack, barely be able to get food so that we can buy cheap clothing. we need to know that it's going to come back to us. I do think that these companies, one way or another, they're going to be judged. And it may be that they're living lives, these super rich who are doing this, that they're living lives of opulence, but on the inside, they're suffering because they're living a life of misery. Their vanity, the hollowness of their existence, the meaninglessness of their existence because of what they're doing. I've said this before and I will say it again. If we don't give unto other people without receiving anything back in return, we are cutting off numerous blessings that the universe has for us. Because giving freely unto others of our time, talents, and money opens up doors so that we can receive blessings that we could not receive otherwise. We need to be very cautious when we choose not to care about enslavement that's going on throughout the world, whereby we're getting our products. And I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. I still go to the Dollar Tree to find out if they have their dollar macro. It's a 10 ounce, or it's a 12 or 15 ounce. It's a fairly large size can of fish that comes from China that I suspect is slave labor. They don't have them anymore, so I may not be able to get them anymore. But I still buy those, even though that may be attained by slave labor, because many of these boats, fishing boats in China and in Asia, many of the people that are on these boats are enslaved. And they may come from Thailand, they may come from other countries that are poorer. So I'm guilty of it as well, and I am working on limiting the amount of stuff that I buy that is either made in other countries where there's slave labor, or where I suspect it may be. Because ultimately, like he said, these companies want to be able to treat us the same way. And if we understand that we're no better, we should do something about this. Our government should do something about this, and our government shouldn't be letting these companies go to other countries and mistreat people. So that was the gist of my talk. If you like my talk, please like, subscribe, share, comment commercials, recommend my videos, do one or more of those things. Thank you. Best wishes.